Welcome to a crossover episode of La Ventanita. I am your host, Carlos Frías, the Miami Herald food editor. I'm usually joined by Amy Reyes, my trusty co-host and editor of Miami.com. But today we got a special co-host because Amy is off having a crab boil with her family. And so we have Alex Harris, the Miami Herald's environmental writer and a super fan of our guest today. What's up, Alex?
Hey, it's going good. I'm very glad to see that we're honoring Amy like we really truly should be as such a foundational member of this podcast. I love your background.
Well, Kendall Bay is always with us in spirit, as you can see over here. Kendall Bay is I'm sure she's out listening to us today, trying to see if you're going to steal her job, which you just might. You just might. Kendall Bay, if you're out there listening, you better pray Alex messes up today.
Yeah, you better run back, otherwise I'll be here next week.
No, but seriously, I think you have a great podcast that everybody devoured. You guys did a really cool podcast on a guy who financed a race team by growing marijuana, by growing, selling, importing illegally marijuana back in the 80s. Today he'd be like a hero.
Yeah, no, my man Randy. If you get a chance, it's on all your podcast apps. It's called Smoked, and it was such a Florida story. He was an Indy race car driver who he really wanted to race cars. Like, how can I do it? Where can I come up with fast money? And fast money in Florida sometimes means pot smuggling from the Bahamas. We ended up talking to a lot of old-fashioned 70s and 80s pot smugglers for this story, some of whom are free and clear, some of whom are in retirement communities like the Villages still, and it was just a blast of a story. So if you get a chance, take a listen.
It's funny because I think at one day we'll see a race car with just like a giant marijuana leaf like right on the hood, and like his car had no sponsorship. To talk about usually anybody who watches NASCAR or whatever, the first thing is like, well, the number 27 Pillsbury Doughboy car ran well today, and it's like that was no sponsor. Anyway, it was a cool series that you and Amy Driscoll did. So go find it on all the podcasts. Really, it's worth it. It's really rewarding. But no, another reason I wanted for you to co-host, Alex, is you helped us do a lot of eating. This week the Miami Herald we dropped our Miami Spice preview. We spent a couple weeks before Miami Spice started kind of taking people up on their offers to like check out what their menus were like. Obviously it's not going to be 100% reflective of what you might get if you show up to a restaurant and you're not like a member of the media, but it was nice to just kind of get an overview, like these are the dishes that are going to be available for X amount of prices. And we put that all online and made it searchable by how much you want to spend, the kind of cuisine that you're interested in, and what part of town you're in. So you can find that online. So what was that like eating for a living? You got a little preview.
Oh man, if I'm going to steal anyone's job, it's probably going to be yours, because I kept joking it was the greatest perk I've ever experienced at the Miami Herald, because I kept showing up and people were like, oh, would you like free food? Absolutely, I want free food. I dragged my fiance with me. I was like, listen, you want to go get real fat on like a bunch of dinners for this month. And it was the best perk. No, it was like, I felt like a celebrity going to these restaurants, and that because we got there before officially Miami Spice started. So we were the only people, and they knew who we were. And they're like, okay, we're making the Miami Spice menu special for you. It was most of the time a very fun experience.
So let me ask you, how many actual journalists did you see during your Miami Spice visits?
Zero.
And that's why we never do these things only at Miami Spice time, because usually they're kind of like PR influencer events, and there were folks who were just like feeding at the trough, and that's why I'm not a fan of. That's why we don't do stuff like that. We if we do any kind of reviews, we usually we go anonymously. We pay, we don't announce where we are, and we pay our own way 100% of the time. But these things it's a peek behind a curtain of how like influencers operate.
It made a lot of sense. Because this is specifically the thing I love about Miami Spice is it's just for locals, right? And that's what makes it fun, is that in the summer there's not as many people hanging around these restaurants, and you go and this is your opportunity to try all the fancy restaurants you've been meaning to and haven't had a chance to go. And there's just so many for Miami Spice. I thought it made a lot of sense for the Herald to do it. And I'm going to say that every single year. You should do this every year and invite me every year to do it.
All right. So give us the best one that you had, and give us your horror story, because I know I'm already thinking of the horror story.
I'll go with the good one first. No shade to any of these restaurants at all, but I had never been to Komodo in Brickell, which if you haven't been, really cool vibes for this restaurant. It's like kind of a jungly thing outside, sleek, red and black on the inside, fancy crisp outfits for the wait staff. And we showed up, and rather than having to choose, for Miami Spice, you usually get an appetizer, an entree, a dessert. They were like, "We're going to bring you one of everything."
Oh boy.
Excuse me? They brought us one of absolutely everything on the menu, and I felt like a goddess. It was amazing, and the food was really amazing. It was really, really good, and everyone was really wonderful. And I got a chance to try like absolutely everything. We took like half of it home because 2 people can't eat 7 entrees unless we had prepared. But the other version, which it just felt like it made up almost for the first one, which was not the restaurant's fault. It was my fault for poor researching. For those who haven't been, there's a clubstaurant in Wynwood called Miami. They are right next to 1-800-Lucky. Yes, that is, imagine that, but like 10 times louder the whole night. And also you are next to 1-800-Lucky, which also has a DJ. And we, like geniuses, chose to sit on the wall that like was right between the 2 restaurants. So we got competing bass lines. Couldn't speak to each other the whole night. It was like, all right.
Have you and your significant other made up after you made them go there?
There was a moment after that where we were walking out of the car and he's like, "Yeah, I don't want to go to Miami Spice anymore. Go find some new friends. Take somebody else." But the Komodo experience made up for it. He's like, "This is what I was talking about." Like, okay.
I have always had this Komodo story in my head of there was a guy who went to the Salt Bay restaurant because that you only go to that restaurant because you want to flex. Like they have a steak that is wrapped in gold that is like $1,000, and that guy went to that restaurant and was expecting to spend maybe a couple thousand or maybe a few hundred, ended up spending a couple thousand, and it became like a whole thing. I ended up writing about it because Salt Bay's people called the police, which they apparently do all the time. And I remember talking to the guy, and he's like, I'm used to spending lots of money. Like, I go to Komodo and we order bottles. And I'm like, yeah, you'll probably spend a grand if you go to Komodo and order some bottles. So that was I was like, okay, Komodo's the place where you go, and you'll have some good food.
No, but I love that story though, because it sounded like it was one ridiculous thing, right? Which is that, okay, who's going to pay $1,000 for a steak? Obviously anyone who's going to put it on Instagram. But the fact, I love that you followed up with how often he called the police when people couldn't pay their bills. Not just like, hey, we'll figure it out later, but straight to the cops every single time, all the time, which feels on brand for that gentleman and his history in South Florida.
There were no winners in that story. There was not a hero in that story. But I'm glad that you had a good experience and ate your way through the Miami Spice preview. So that's all online now. People should find it. I think it's pretty helpful to get kind of like a real feel for what some of those places are like. And we picked places that we thought were interesting. Like I went to Cote, spelled Cote. A lot of folks, because we're in Miami, they're like, is that Cote? Like Dale? No, it's Cote, which actually the hostess was saying. She's like, you could say it Cote like Dale. She's like, but it's Cote, like put on a coat. And
was that your favorite?
That one was good because it's the only restaurant that has a Michelin star that attempted to stay within the price barriers, and they only offer it at lunch. So we went for lunch, and it was filling, and it was kind of like whetting your appetite for coming back and trying the full scale restaurant. My favorite was this place called Abale Tel Avivian Kitchen. It's on South Beach, but don't hold that against it. It's on the South of Fifth side. On a hidden little street. It's not very busy, although it is next to Planta, but it's not. That street is not generally very busy. And Sam Gornstein, who founded My Ceviche, is there. He also was the head chef at Zouk, Zuuk, for a long time. That place was kind of like a Mediterranean inspired. So he's there now with Hetty Goldstein, who is kind of like the pastry queen, who started at Michael's Genuine. She makes amazing, incredible pastries, and the place is all like, I would call it like pan Middle Eastern. Like his family are Syrian background, so he brings a lot of like kind of Middle Eastern influences, and the idea of Tel Aviv as kind of like a cosmopolitan city in the Middle East with lots of influences. So, and the food is really fantastic, like all kinds of like there's a whole selection of tahinis that you can dip, and they're
Ooh.
incredible, so good.
No, I love that. It sounds like a killer combo. But also on your South Beach reference, something else I liked about our Miami Spice Guide is we included parking information, which to me
Yes.
is my number one thing whenever I try to go eat out in Miami-Dade. I'm just like, time to go brave Brickell. Like, where am I in the city center? Am I going to get lost again? Because I definitely got lost the last time I parked there. I didn't know there was 3 separate underground parking garages. It took me about half an hour to find my car. It was great. Would not recommend. Use all your apps. Take your pictures, folks. Don't do what I did.
Yeah, the parking garages I think are the same. I think Miami Beach gets a lot of grief, South Beach especially because parking can be rough.
Yeah.
But like the parking garages, those are the jam. Like that's where you go. It's actually half the price than parking on the street. Did you know that?
I did. And then
Yeah, well, yeah.
13th has the South Beach garage that is the
Right,
cheapest. It's the
right.
city-owned one. So that's your pro tip. If you're going to go try to dine anywhere in South Beach and you want to do cheap parking, bring your comfy shoes, not your high heels. Park there and hike.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good luck, folks, not showing up in their high heels on South Beach. That's probably going to
That's true.
happen.
That's true. That's a fair point.
So the other thing I've been obsessed with this week because I am, as Connie Ogle says, a sandwich freak. I literally just went ahead and
Yes.
put that on my. I just put that on my bio. Is there's a new Cuban sandwich book out and it's written by folks in Tampa, and of course you feel like they're gonna just make it into kind of a polemic about Miami versus Tampa and claiming that Tampa is, but it's really a fascinating book because they kind of threw out the emotional arguments and they looked at primary sources. So the guy spent years, a guy by the name of Andrew Hughes, who's an archivist, a librarian for 20 plus years for the University of South Florida Special Collections. He was like the lead author on this and went to like primary sources. That means like as far back as you can see old restaurant menus, old newspaper stories, stuff that you could find in Cuba, and found that there were 2 new players in the Cuban sandwich origin story. One of them everyone will immediately hate, and that is New York. There's a
Yeah.
1901 reference to that. You
I'm
immediately
going
hate
to
that, right?
say hardcore no. I'm not even from South Florida, but I don't care if it's based on facts and data and like historical documents. The New Yorkers can't have this. They've taken so much from us. No, they don't get to take it. I refuse to believe that. That's fake news.
Yeah, no, it's so here's a book right here, and one of the co-authors is Jeff Houck, who used to be a restaurant critic for the Tampa Tribune, and he is really one of the most gifted writers I know, and he just devotes himself to food, and really one of the most interesting guys. But let me tell you, they looked at primary sources, and like I saw the newspaper clippings, and it's new, but that there's a fair point, which is at the turn of the century in 1900. There was more media in New York City than there was in Tampa, for instance, or Miami, or but also Havana. So the other city in the conversation is Havana, and kind of what it boils down to is that like all of the Cuban sandwiches that we know that exist now, they kind of started with this Proto-Cuban sandwich that started in Havana, like that they have stuff going back to the turn of the century where it was like always ham, pork, pickles, and mustard, and always like a weird third ingredient. Like, and by weird I mean like mortadella, yes, foie gras, what we call it they called it like a liver pate, which Cubans make this thing called una carne fría. Translates to like cold meat.
Cold meat, yeah.
Which is, and it's like a cold cut, and it's una carne fría. So there was that in it. Layers of chicken, layers of turkey. Turkey shows up in so many versions, Alex, because sandwiches at that time were a rich person's food. It was literally like a little petit four, like they would ladies would have at their parties. And as Jeff Houck told me, he's like, if a sandwich if you were eating something that had more than one protein in it, it was like a flex. It was the original gold wrap steak.
I guess that does make sense, right? Because like, who's gonna go like kill a turkey and also get a pig and also this? Only the rich folks. Okay, but I need to know your take. Now that you are the most learned Cuban sandwich man in all the land, where do you think they came from?
All right,
Putting you on the hot spot.
I'm literally just gonna go on sources. Like I have no dog in the fight. As a matter of fact, I've had Cuban sandwiches with salami in them, and they're good. And at home, I make them with chorizo because I think the chorizo adds a nice flavor. That was another thing that showed up. So I think, obviously, like I think what we have is like the human evolutionary debate, where you have like there is a common ancestor, and then you have all of these versions that sprout out from it. Some of these died, and we live in times like where Neanderthal and anatomically modern human live together at the same time, and that's where you have the Tampa Cuban sandwich and the Miami Cuban sandwich, and those are the two most acceptable versions. I'm sure there's some version that's like as this guy said, there's probably some version in Montana with liverwurst in it, but that's like the part of the family that nobody talks about. So
or Rocky Mountain oysters or something a little bit more local.
Exactly.
No.
Like it is very America to like take something that exists in another place and then give it a name and be like, we invented this. And isn't that what TikTok does with like,
it's got a term. It's called Columbusing. When you take someone else's idea, like a dance or whatever on the internet or a meme, and you pretend you made it up yourself, people will accuse you of Columbusing.
Yeah. So all the research is pointing towards Columbusing. But also that the term, like that thing starts to pop up in several places at the same time. So not Miami, because Cubans in Miami came along much further down the timeline. But like Tampa, New Orleans, New York, and Havana, because like New Orleans had a lot of big sugar.
I would say I would love to know whatever New Orleans' take on Cuban sandwiches. I bet it's delicious. I don't care what they put in it. Maybe like shrimp, whatever. I'm down. I'm sure it's great.
Cuban sandwich with some shrimp in it. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, you're gonna put some Cuban sandwich? Put some shrimp in that Cuban sandwich. It's gonna be delicious. Please.
Very good, very good.
Thank you, Ryan. So yeah, so the book is really good. It's $25, and I got it from University of Florida Press, or University Press of Florida. And I recommend it. It's a quick read. I literally read it in a day, but only because I really wanted to read it in a day. But
and you are a sandwich freak, as we have previously established. That's a very good term for you.
Yeah, and my plancha is in the hands of the sandwich aficionados, and they're in the process of getting it in shape. They're called Sunshine Polish and Plating. I really want to drop their names because like I already paid. Okay, so I'm not getting anything from it. But I think that like they do really cool things. Like they find like they do all kinds of plating of all kinds, from like car parts to to like refurbishing lamps and stuff. So Sunshine Polish and Plating. So we'll see how it turns out.
Well, you're gonna have to update us. We need photos of whatever. Please God, make it a real sandwich that you make using it once you get it back.
Oh yes. I think the first sandwich I make on it is going to have to be a Cuban sandwich, right?
That would make sense. Just to rechristen it again.
Right. All right. So I think I've made you suffer long enough as a super fan, and so I want to talk about our guest today, who is Rane Roatta. So Rane's Homestead Farm, Miami Fruit, figured out early on that if they posted videos of the phallic-looking rare exotic fruit that they grow, those videos would go viral. Imagine that. The internet likes phallic things. But it was more than that. Rane and his partner, Adele Schlegel, have been growing ultra-rare exotic fruit in the Redland for more than 8 years. They also partner with hundreds of local farmers to highlight the bounty of tropical fruit that we grow in the Redland. And they sell this fruit strictly online to the tropical fruit barren places across the country. So I called him a fruit influencer. I mean, I think that's fair. Fair. But Rane is more than just a cute, fruity guy, as Adele said when she first saw him. He's a talented musician. He's a competitive cyclist. He's going to be going to Italy in the next couple of months for a championship race there soon. And he's devoted to living kind of an environmentally friendly lifestyle. So I'm very curious to talk with him about it. So let's get into it. Welcome, Rane.
Hey, Rane, how's it going?
It's going good. All I can think about is sandwiches now, but thanks for having me on.
Oh, for sure, man. I just felt like that time that we were out there on the farm, like I always appreciate that because it's so close to Miami. Like it's a 30-minute drive, and yet it's so different from being in the city of Miami. Mm-hmm, and it's always nice to remember that like a lot of our food comes from there. Like a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of our food is grown there.
Oh yeah, and we're right up next to the Everglades, so we're out in nature.
Yeah, and you spend out a lot of time out in nature, not just in the farming, but like in the cycling. Like you're a
Yeah,
gravel, you ride the gravel bikes.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's the benefit of being out here. I can go 2 miles west, and I'm out in the Everglades National Park. Unlimited gravel, just me and the gators and the birds.
Oh,
I
that's
hope you
pretty awesome.
stay safe on that bike and don't end up being a gator's lunch. Just stay on that gravel, stay on that
You
little.
know, the gators aren't. You don't have to worry about the gators. It's the crocodiles that you have to worry about, and those you get in the brackish water closer to the ocean. So
Yeah.
People
And as
forget.
long as
People forget that Miami, because it's funny. I posted, like, I commented on something. You guys see that viral video of the old man hitting the crocodile with a skillet?
yeah.
You haven't seen that? Oh my God, it's
I don't
amazing.
think I've seen that.
It's like a croc comes right at him and he hits him with a skillet. Bam, bam. And
Oh
I
my
said
God.
something about Florida grandpas, hit different.
Yeah.
God.
See, I did a dad joke. So,
Oof.
and
I
people
mean,
were like, that's not even a South Florida thing. And I was like, I know that this is Australia, but South Florida is one of the few places on earth that has alligators and crocodiles.
That's true.
Also,
That's very
I think anyone in Florida is used to dealing with all of their reptiles in their own way. My mom had a snake killing shovel. It was specifically for beheading cottonmouths when they came up on us. So,
Oh my God.
I had croc skillet and a snake shovel, and you're all good.
Oh my God.
Hey, so are we all like multi-generational Floridians? Like I'm first generation Floridian because my folks emigrated, so but you guys are multi-generational Floridians, right?
My dad was born in Miami, grew up in Miami. My mom was from New York. So does that make me first? That makes me
Yeah.
second?
You count. No, you count as
Second,
second generation, I would think.
Yeah.
And you,
Yeah,
Alex?
I'm the same situation. My mom's born and raised here in Central Florida, but my dad is a Yankee. He came from New Jersey. So
Oh, cool.
Which would explain why your mom is the cottonmouth killer.
she is indeed. She also was. My most Florida woman claim to fame is that she was the very first Cinderella at Disney 50 years ago. So I'm a
What?
descendant of a Disney princess, which is
Wow.
still not as cool as being the fruit king of South Florida. I think that is a more Florida man thing, but that is my fun fact.
I don't know,
Yeah.
man. Suddenly I feel very low on the totem pole here. I mean, that's that is pretty impressive. I got to say that's pretty impressive.
You remember when Tiger King came out during the pandemic, and the
Of course.
opening scene is in Homestead, Florida?
Hmm. Where is that? Where was that farm?
Well, I think most of it happened in Texas or something, but the opening scene is in Homestead, and we were all locked down in Homestead, and all the workers were all like first couple of weeks of pandemic, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is happening here. There's tigers."
Yeah, that's
No,
the
'cause
Florida's thing ever.
Homestead is a really, I would use the word interesting city. There's so much.
Interesting.
I mean, there
Yeah.
are tigers, there's archery, there's gators, there's the Everglades, and then there's the weirdest fruit known to mankind. You've
Weirdest
got
fruit
everything
ever.
you'd ever need.
That's true. And there's some really cool farms down here that we have basically databases for hundreds of species. So there's a farm with hundreds of bananas varieties, so all different types of bananas. There's a farm with hundreds of avocado varieties, 600 varieties of avocado. There's another mango farm with 500 varieties of mango. So there's like some really cool gems down here. The Fruit and Spice Park as well, which has like every edible and like poisonous plant ever. So
I have an
Don't throw
avocado
the-
question.
Don't put those two next to each other.
Oh, yeah.
Go for it, Alex.
No, I was gonna say I have an avocado question for you. You said there's hundreds. I know, like I think most of us have like the platonic ideal of an avocado, which is the Hass, and then there's the
Mhm.
Florida avocado. Is there anything that like gets towards the middle where it doesn't taste like water, but also doesn't
yeah.
cost $10 per avocado?
well, there's so many, and there's so many good ones. There's so many different flavors. I think like we tend to think of the Florida ones as being like this big, watery, kind of almost like sweet, have a sweet flavor. Those are like the more commercial ones that are grown here. But there are really buttery, creamy, thick, oily avocados as well that we grow here, and there's some with edible skin, so you can just like eat it like an apple. Those are really fun. Do I have any here? I think I only have the phallic shaped ones here on the shelf for you guys, but
Right. Yeah, that one right above your head needs a proctologist, big time. You gave me one of those edible skin ones, and it was great. It was like somewhere between a Hass. It was not quite as rich as a Hass, but it was, and so it leaned a little bit towards, it was a little, because the Haas I find too rich to eat on their own, unless it's, like I just find like that, it's the content level of the
Mm-hmm.
like the omega-3s is too strong in it, Like I grew
You're
up, and
a
I grew
true
up on the
Florida
Florida ones.
boy.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. Just put like some vinegar and some salt on it, and it's got that avocado salad with some shaved white onions.
Oh yeah.
That's how I
That
eat my
is such a
avocados.
Miami boy. Yeah,
For
no, that
sure.
is we're orange people in the Central Florida. We don't have the super watery avocados. It was very strange to come down here. When I first moved to Miami, the fruit was actually the reason I've been following you for so long, Rane, is that when I came down here and I went to my very first farmer's market, my mind was blown. I had never
Mhm.
seen even pictures
Yeah.
of half the fruits that were suddenly available. And it was the coolest thing. So I wanted to learn more, and I ended up finding you guys and a couple of other growers down in South Dade and just learning as much as I could about it. And it's really interesting because I think people from other parts, even other parts of the state, don't know half the things behind you.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Will,
absolutely.
will, will you grab a couple of those and like tell us like what we're looking at?
Yeah,
'Cause
sure. Which one catches your eye?
I know those
Cacao.
bananas. Oh, okay, could give us cacao and one of those bananas.
One of those
Oh, yeah,
oh yeah.
cacao.
Well, actually, yeah. There's so cacao. Let's see if I can do it without everything
I was going to
falling
say, I don't
over.
want to ruin your beautiful setup.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
this
so
is
nice.
cacao, chocolate fruit, and sorry for the overexposure there. And actually, cacao, as you know, we all know about chocolate and the bean inside the dark chocolate cacao nibs. It has a delicious fruit as well. So a white, creamy, tangy, really, really delicious fruit around the beans. So this, we eat it raw, and then you can create nibs with it, or you can put it in smoothies or smoothie bowls. It's really a lot of fun. And then
Actually,
as for
that
bananas,
that reminds me of cashews. Like we had a cashew tree,
mm-hmm,
and like that also has a fruit, and the fruit is
right,
kind of this sour, tart fruit.
mm-hmm,
My dad, who was a farmer in Cuba, like he just loved eating the fruit. He grew the fruit
yeah.
he grew the tree. He raised the tree for the fruit, and like the nuts, like who's gonna go roasting cashew nuts? So it's really funny.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And then we've got some cool bananas here. And these are a popular banana because these are seeded banana. Let's see,
Oh,
how can I?
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
You got to get your best like makeup influencer. You got to put the hand behind it,
Oh, behind it. Is that how it
like a
works?
YouTube. Yes, it
Yeah,
balances it out. It's supposed
I don't
to.
have the greatest lighting here, but I was gonna show you. Oh, I don't even have my knife with me. Let's see. I don't know.
Oh,
Bite it open here.
yes,
You can
yes.
see there's seeds inside of it. Oh yeah, the
Whoa.
lighting
Oh,
is
right
terrible, but there's
on.
little
No, but
black
yeah.
seeds, and so you can plant the seeds and grow them. Not so fun to eat because they're full of seeds, but a cool novelty crop that a lot of people are interested about because everybody wants to know where are the seeds in the bananas. Why are there no seeds? There's seeds in all the other fruit, but not in bananas. So
Well,
it's
it's
fun.
funny that your business has that seems to be outwardly the biggest fans of your business. Folks who are like the try anything crowd, right?
Right.
The fear
Well, I
factor
think
crowd.
Well, variety is the spice of life, and everybody likes something unique. I haven't found anybody that's just like, no, I'm only going to eat blueberries and apples from the store. Everybody likes something, whether it's mangosteen or cacao or a giant avocado or a sugar apple or mamey. Everybody's likes something unique. So that's really the thing we do is we try to have all this diverse offerings, all these different flavors, and everybody finds something they like for sure.
Your partner Adele, she handles all the social media, and it's like
Mhm.
you two are like the Abercrombie and Fitch cover models because like yeah, there she is. We have a video up on put over, and like she does all the social media. She stars in some of it, and like it's not lost on you guys that like there's an element of folks that people just like watching what you guys are gonna do. Like they just love being interested in like these two people that have this farm life.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we work really well together. We basically do the yin and yang of the business, and work together really well by relying on each other heavily. So it's really fun.
And how important would you say like the social media aspect of it is? I feel like you've built up a pretty big community of folks who are like super into this stuff, even though they don't live down here, they've never been down here. Like, what kind of response do you get from your viewers?
Yeah, I mean it is, today it's not just with me, with any business or any organization or anything you do, it has to be online. You have to be able to reach the people, and there's more connectivity than ever. And then there's a lot to navigate with, algorithms and changing environments and changing, different apps and different platforms and all that jazz. So, I started it, as in the article probably you've read, and the viewers have maybe read. I started just selling locally here in Miami and biking the fruit back and forth from the farm to the market, and really just doing that as a response to a demand that people had asked me to do, growers had asked me to do, customers had asked me to do, and so I called it Miami Fruit because it was the fruit of Miami, and it was staying here. But people hounded me down and asked me to send it across the country, and basically saw my personal Facebook posts back in 2013, 2014. And so, it just kind of started growing from there, because I had to make a page so that my inbox and my Facebook inbox wasn't flooded. So, yeah, it's really cool. And now, with the platforms being as big as they are and the following as big as they are, it's a global interest. There's most of our customers, obviously all of our customers in the US and Canada, but there's people in other countries all over the world that are following us and learning about the fruit, and they want to grow the fruit there, and so that's really cool as well.
There's an aspect to what you guys do that it's like kind of revealing all the stuff that's happening in the Redland. Like, you kind of make you make farming feel cool. Like, these things, look at me, I'm growing these exotic fruits on the farm, and yet right behind you in that photo, the photo that we're looking at, if you're on the audio podcast, listen, sorry, you're gonna miss out, but check it out online. You guys created this really cool growing system. You're experimenting with this growing system that is quote unquote hurricane proof, right?
Yeah.
So you keep the trees small, so they can be supported and immediately start fruiting, and then so if a hurricane hits, they stay small and they'll start fruiting pretty soon after that. So that's like, I think that the prettiness of what you guys do, and like the virality of it belies all this real farming research that you guys are doing underneath, which I find fascinating. Like, thinking about the future of growing in the agricultural region of South Florida.
Yeah. I mean, we're just really passionate about fruit and really passionate about what we do. So I think that's why we've come this far and done as well as we have, just because we haven't given up, even though it's been many years of just uphill, piecing things together. But yeah, we're trialing new species, and we're trying to see what fruits we can grow here that will actually be a sustainable and economic crop for growers, and in an agricultural economy that's dying, in a zone that's being squeezed out. If you can see my video, we're up against the Everglades, and so housing's coming in and people are moving down and farms are getting sold. And so in order to have anything green here, any fruit growing, it has to be something that's very economically safe for the grower, something that we can't get anywhere else. We can't grow it up in the Central Florida or higher up, and we can't import it from another country for a handful of reasons. So we're just investing in trying to grow those types of crops and see what we can get away with, especially since the climate is changing and we're not getting as severe winters as we used to. We can kind of get away with some things. So that's our goal. And then on top of that, we'd like to try to implement the most up-to-date practices for high density and high productivity, so that growers can not just grow something, but they can produce it at a scale where there's more fruit per acre. They can get more for their land, and try to produce, and make sure that they can afford to have a farm.
Yeah, and I want to jump in on what you said there because that's what I cover. So I cover climate change for the paper, and one of the things I've heard about ag in South Dade is that our zones are sort of changing as it gets warmer,
Hmm.
and they're already starting to change and will continue to change. And I've heard all these stories about we can grow vanilla, we can grow coffee, and I heard this fabulous story about this woman who grew this incredibly huge breadfruit tree in her
Hmm.
yard in downtown Miami, which as far as I understand is something that wouldn't have been possible 15, 20 years ago. Like what has your experience been of what things can we grow now that we didn't used to or that we are about to lose the ability to grow?
Yeah, and absolutely, just as you said, there's all these crops that we're familiar with that we can get away with growing here, at least at a kind of homeowner scale, right? You can. I think it's really cool that you can have a coffee tree in your backyard or a breadfruit tree in your backyard in Miami, and use have one or two of these different things that we all know how to use and everybody likes, coffee and cacao and even vanilla. Um, but as far as like a commercial, a farm that has to produce and have margins that we're comparing to the grocery store, we're comparing to imports. Our goal is to try to find things that aren't available elsewhere, aren't allowed into the country, or are too perishable to get in, even if they were allowed. So that way, we're not competing with the coffee in a different country that's coming in that's already being produced at a huge scale. When we're not competing with the breadfruit from the Dominican Republic, we want to grow things that are more unique and novel. And then as we're growing them, we're also testing the market and to see what feedback we get from customers and how much they really want this crop. So we can grow 100 trees here and then see what the demand is. And if the demand is really high, then we know we've got a winner.
The
So.
you mentioned stuff that you bring in from the outside, but even stuff that you're used to getting, like I'll get like pineapples
Hmm.
from Publix, and sometimes they're like inedible. They're like super sour, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
pineapple's one of those things where like it's the most delicious when it turns
Oh,
that beautiful orange
and
right on the plant.
and most people have never tried a good pineapple, and they're blown away when they try one of ours. And we've grown a lot of pineapples, thousands and thousands of pineapples on our farm, and we've kind of developed a little system to grow them that at least we can produce a lot per acre. However, as we know with the way that the internet works and how what goes viral, right? It's hard to get people to try a pineapple because they're not going to understand how
They think
much
they've
better
had a
it can be.
pineapple, right? They
Yeah, they
think
think
they've had a
it's a
pineapple.
pineapple. But
Yeah.
if you have a blue pineapple or a red pineapple, then maybe you've got something going. So, there has to be a certain amount of appeal, and it's definitely not to say that looks are everything, but but it has to be coupled with something novel and something exciting and something that's off the beaten path, in order for people to really want to try it and to pay money that you can only afford to do in an American economy with American labor and American land prices. And it's tough. It's tough in North American land prices in the USA. I mean,
Right.
Sort of like
it's
a finger limes versus key limes, right? Like it's an incredibly agriculturally impressive thing to be say I can grow key limes in South Florida without
mhm.
all the mold and pests. People are like, I've had a lime, but ooh, it's in the shape of a finger. It's so much more interesting. People will buy
Right.
that.
Yeah, and it's tough, because the the way that the world's working now is really heavily leaning on imports for products and for most food items. So we're used to having really cheap stuff, and it's because the land and the labor and everything is orders of magnitude cheaper. And so we're just have to really focus on specialty items, focus on things that are off the beaten path and exciting. And it's nice to have some agriculture in your local community. It's nice to have some fruit that's produced here, and so we want to try to keep that going.
Where can folks? Is there anybody locally that's using your fruit in their food? Like, are there any chefs that you're working with that they're using your
Oh
stuff?
yeah, I'm not the best person to know offhand, But I know we send a good amount of fruit to chefs, across the country. I know we used to have, there was a restaurant called Plant that used to use our mamey in their dishes and a couple other items. I think they're going through a reopening, and that's in Wynwood, I think.
In Wynwood, yeah, they were doing something really. They were the original planta, so to speak.
Yeah, they're Plant. Yeah. And so yeah, there's a handful of items. I think that like the cacao is really popular, and the passion fruit, and the granadilla, mamey, of course, they're really popular because you can use small amounts of them and kind of spread them out and have them in different dishes. Like one cacao bean on top of the chocolate mousse or whatever, and even sprouted coconut has had some excitement too.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I remember you're talking about how some of the stuff is so much more available now. Like when I was a kid growing up, we had a very fickle mamey tree in the backyard, and when my dad would hear the weather report that it was gonna get near freezing temperatures, we'd be out in the yard throwing like a sheet over it to keep the frost from laying on it. So like me and my dad out at 11 o'clock at night trying to get a sheet over a giant mamey tree, like and now you can get them at Publix. You know what I mean?
Also, now what frost? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. What frost?
Yeah.
And the mameys that you guys are growing and sourcing locally are these. They're almost like ice cream, which is how I like to eat them, just like right out of the. Instead of making a shake, I just like eating the raw.
They're
fruit.
so good. They're so good.
So but like this, the idea of growing and farming and knowing where your food comes from, it's part of like a lifestyle in general for you, right? Like the cycling, all of that fits into a little bit about who you are.
It's definitely a passion, and it definitely spawned from a desire to get close to our food system and learn how to grow things for ourselves and get better quality fruit as well. Like you said, there's a difference between the pineapple in the store and the pineapple you grow here locally. So it's sort of a foodie passion that spawned the curiosity that got me from going from saxophone to agriculture. And so for us, it's really important. We eat tons of fruit. We always have great fruit on hand, and that's like the perk of the job. That's what keeps us going.
It's funny that there's this story you told me where you're like, if I keep doing this, or I think it was your dad that told me, he's like, he was at the point where like if I keep playing music, you went to New World School of the Arts, you were at the Brubeck Institute, which Dave Brubeck was a legendary jazz musician who started this institute in California. Graduate of that, and like you're like you said, my career could be playing the saxophone for Steely Dan, and you were like, my career is playing the saxophone for Steely Dan, and your dad is like, your career could be playing the saxophone for Steely Dan, and your dad who's also into landscape, who's got a landscaping business. It's funny that you guys saw that two different ways.
Yeah. I think it was really nice because I got to taste a lot of the professional world for music. I got to tour and teach and record and see a lot of the U.S. and do jazz festivals and all that stuff. So I got like the craving was fulfilled, and I got it was satisfied, and I got to try a lot of things. And at the end of the day, I had other interests as well. It's not to say that music's done forever, but I went out on a limb to try something new and fell in love with that as well. And not just that, but I found that I was very useful to my community. Everyone was asking me to do the things that I ended up doing and that I'm doing today. It wasn't a entrepreneurial desire, or I never thought of starting a business or being a boss or any of that stuff. Like I just started working at a farm, and kind of the rest is history. So
it kind of feels like that's its own lifestyle, right? Biking everywhere in the Everglades, being a part of the agricultural community, living where you live in South Dade. What do you love about living in the Redland? What do you love about being part of that agricultural community?
Well, I mean, there's so much. I guess it's hard to put myself out of it and think about what it would be like to be a normal person. But I I love riding my bike. I love being outside. I love doing things with my hands and accomplishing things day by day and seeing the trees grow and seeing the change of the seasons through. Even though we don't have seasons, we have each crop has its own season, and they flower and they fruit and then they defoliate. So for me, that's fulfilling and exciting. But again, I think just doing something that the community is asking of you and getting a reward in a sense that you're able to fulfill the requests of the community. And it started just being a local thing where I'm selling at the markets, but now I'm fulfilling the requests of the country and of people all over the country that they want to try long neck avocado and Monstera deliciosa. And so we're now we're putting more Monstera in the ground. So it's a long-term fulfilling project for me.
It's funny I mentioned my cousin Frank has been riding bike down here. He pretty much knows everybody. And I was like, "Have you heard of this kid Rane?" And he's like, "Yeah, that guy is freakishly strong." That guy's because like his bike, a cyclist. He's like, I don't know where that comes from. Like that guy was built to ride bike faster than most people, which I thought was really interesting.
Tell me it comes from pedaling 500 pounds of fruit from Homestead to Miami Beach and back.
Oh, yeah. That's endurance training for you. Just a little bit more organic.
Yeah, especially if you get a headwind and the wind's coming on you, then then it's really hard.
But like so much with cycling, like especially when you're doing a sport like that, where you'll burn 10,000 calories like that. Like I think your dad mentioned at one point that you were like a fruitarian. Like it takes a lot to like just do that, get that kind of calories just pounding fruit, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a certain point at where if you're burning more than 5,000 or 6,000 calories in a day, you really have to focus heavily on carbs. And so I would do a lot of like dehydrated bananas, which are easily digestible, high calorie food. It's not like I wasn't eating apples and grapes, for fuel, but if you burning 10,000 calories a day, you have to eat a lot of carbs because you can't eat protein and fat, and you'll get full and you'll have to lay down and you won't be able to eat enough calories to keep going. So it was pretty integral to having that high, energetic output to have a really, I don't like to use the word clean diet, but having a very like efficient and high calorie carbohydrate based diet is really important. So
I'm a little bit more familiar with long-term running rather than cycling, and I know that it's really important that you eat your goos and your gels and your snacks. And this is the one thing where I'm like, Amy should be here to answer this, to talk about this. But do you bring snacks when you cycle, and when you go to Italy, are you going to have dehydrated bananas or any other fruit themed like race snacks?
Yeah, I'm eating constantly. Someone asked me the other day, like, are you hungry? Like, are you hungry? Are we going to get dinner? Or what are we doing? And I was like, I'm hungry. Yes, I just ate. Yes, I'll be hungry in 20 minutes. Like that's always my answer. Like I always just ate and I'm always hungry. And I don't burn as many calories as I did when I was, transporting the fruit on the bike. But normally around 5,000 to 7,000 calories a day is my like input and output. But yeah, when you're biking all day, it can be 10 to 15,000. So.
What got you to that point where you're completely vegan, right? If I remember hearing last time, like what got you to that point? And relatively young, you were a teen when you transitioned.
Yeah, so I've been vegan, plant-based for 12 years, and I just tried it off basically a whim when I was 17. I met someone and they were like, "You should try eating raw vegan," and I just started eating a lot of fruit and learned along the way. But yeah, it's a passion of mine, and talking about climate change and the impacts of animal agriculture are huge. Probably the biggest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions and CO2 emissions and global warming would be the production of animal products. So I was passionate about riding my bike and not driving a car. to try to help the planet, and you can do orders of magnitude more benefit by just like not eating cheese, so that's a big part of it, and then also for your health as well, and basically reducing all risk of of the most common killers, heart disease, and and lowering your cholesterol, all these things that we all know we should be doing. So it's a passion of mine for sure, and I love animals too, so it's something that I feel great doing, and I love trying to inspire others to make changes in their life to help the planet, help their health, and so it's a big passion.
That's a real commitment. I was gonna say, yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, and also what you do is really important if you're thinking about climate change and our stewardship of the earth as well, because you can grow oranges a lot of places, but oranges aren't going to grow well in a lot of places. And you're choosing fruits that are not necessarily native. Some of them are, but some of them are just, they're uniquely suited. They're really good in the soil. They're really good with this heat, and they're going to flourish. So you get, you don't have to pour chemicals or put a ton of time and attention into some of these fruits. And people eating them are eating them locally, which, as we know, is a huge impact on our carbon emissions. If you don't have to fly it to Michigan, it's going to be way easier.
Well, and we're in a super unique spot we're the only place in the continental U.S. that can produce a lot of these tropical fruits, and so by producing these tropical fruits here, we're cutting down on emissions to get them all the way from the Amazon to come to New York City. We're growing them here locally in the continental U.S. Sure, it could be a little more local. It could be in upstate New York, but you can't grow bananas in upstate New York. So so we're passionate about that as well. I don't have grandiose dreams that I think that we could produce all of the U.S.'s bananas here. I don't think people want to pay that much for bananas. But it is really cool to have some crops here and to continue the agricultural economy, because I think that it's important to have agriculture in every state, right? It's important to have some food growing nearby, and with the pandemic, everybody seems to be on top of that now, and growing fruit in their backyard, and getting inspired, scared of the apocalypse type of stuff. But I'm not scared of the apocalypse, but I think it's important to have food around and to be connected a little bit to growing food and where your food comes from. I think it's important for consumption and for people to think about food waste and sustainability and eating lower on the food chain and cutting out meat, as eat meat once a week instead of 7 times a week or 21 times a week. So that's really important.
Yeah, so when the zombies come, we're coming to your farm. We're going to eat all the fruit, and we're going to live forever. I love it. Thank you for this plan. I feel much more secure now.
You're welcome anytime.
So give us an idea. If you had to break it down, what are 3 of your favorite fruits? Like 3 of just like you could just eat them all the time.
It's a tough one. I really like the Annona family, which is sugar apple and soursop. So that whole family it's kind of a cop out for the question, but that family is one of my favorites. And the infamous durian. Have you ever tried durian?
I have had it. I think I mentioned to you in ice cream. They made a reduction. They put it in ice cream, and it was like a locally done thing. It was like jackfruit in the sense that there's a sweetness to it. Like there's an all-out sweetness to it. It's not an earthy. It's not gritty like pear. But then there is I can only describe it as a funk. that is the kind of aftertaste in the back of your throat.
Right.
And it is very odd.
Just like any fruit, there's hundreds of varieties of durian. So we have that we sell online and ship all over the country. We have probably 10 varieties of durian, and they're all very different. And it's a shame the most common and most popular one is more of a not so sweet, more sulfury, garlicky tasting one. But there are durians that just melt in your mouth and are super sweet, taste like custard. There's red durians and yellow durians and white durians. So it's a really cool fruit, and there's a reason it's the king of the fruit, because it's pretty badass. And then so that's two families of fruit that I mentioned. There, you showed a slide earlier of the abiu, which is another one of my favorites. It's just like a super cool sweet fruit, and it's got kind of a caramel flavor, but it's juicy and super sweet, and it's just a beautiful fruit.
All right, so that in mind, before we let you go, we always play a kiss, marry, kill with food. So usually we'll give you cafecito, pastelitos, and croquetas, and we may do that still. But I'm gonna make you kiss, marry, kill your three favorite.
Marry, kill. Okay.
So and let's say a standard anon, which sugar apple, a durian, and an abiu, which. So if you have to kiss, marry, kill, what's it gonna be?
Well, yeah, probably kiss the abiu, marry the anon. I could eat those every day, and then I have to kill the durian.
Ooh, poor durian.
Okay,
Yeah, poor durian.
Somebody had to kill the king.
Yeah, if I had to kill one, it'd be the king.
All right, you come at the king. You best not miss. You know how it goes. What about? Are you a cafecito, pastelito, croqueta guy?
Oh yes. I mean,
you can forget this, and they're very good.
I'm already married to coffee, so that one's a given, and it's probably that way for most people, right? And there's an awesome vegan Cuban place. It's called Vegan Cuban Cuisine on Sunset Drive. Have you ever been there?
I have not, but you are the second guest to mention that place.
Well, because you're talking about Cuban sandwiches, I got all hungry, and now I'm gonna have to go there because it's really good. And I haven't had non-vegan. I haven't had a normal non-vegan Cuban sandwich in over 12 years. But to me, it's phenomenal. So,
all right, on.
Definitely check it out and see, and maybe you got your meatless Mondays, handed to you there if you stop by Vegan Cuban Cuisine. So they've got the croquetas and all kinds of good stuff. What was the third one?
Pastelito. Are you a pastelito
Pastelitos.
guy?
They have pastelitos too. Yeah, it's hard to choose between croquetas and pastelitos. Yeah, that's a hard one.
Kiss, marry, kill. Come on, man.
Okay, so I guess I'll kiss the pastelitos and kill the croquetas. I know that's not the popular opinion, but
there is another really good vegan croqueta. Chug's Diner has a black bean croqueta. That's amazing. Oh, really? So if you want to change it up a little bit, they have really good vegan croquetas.
Cool. Oh, and that place, the Vegan Cuban Cuisine, they have an unreal vegan flan with made with coconut. It's really good. Yeah.
Okay, that's on my list now. I haven't had
that place was on my list, and it's moved right to the top. So, Rane,
cool.
Rane, thank you so much for making the time to talking with us. I mean, you've gone almost an hour without eating, so I think that we better let you go before
I gotta go eat something. I've been making avocado toast every day since it's avocado season. I've got so many avocados here, and so I gotta make some avocado toast.
Dang, now I'm hungry. Thanks again
Thank you for
time,
having
man.
me. It's always a pleasure. So anytime you guys want some fruit, come by.
All right, man. We'll do it. Take care, Rane.
Awesome. Thank you.
Rane.
He is a cute, fruity guy, as his partner says.
I love that. That is so on brand. And it's so cool to hear about people who have built their own communities with something that makes Miami so special, like our bizarre fruits. It's so cool to get a slice of that life for a while.
Yeah, it really is, and they're doing something really different, really special. And now that he's mentioned vegan Cuban cuisine twice, it's been mentioned twice. I gotta make an effort to.
You gotta go, man. I will say that I have a tab open now on Miami Fruit. He mentioned 6 fruits I've never heard of. I'm about to place an order. I want to see what he's talking about.
Right. Well, Alex, that feels like a show.
That felt like a very good show.
Good. Well, thank you so much for joining me and helping me talk with Rane. I couldn't have picked a better pinch hitter co-host. We'll have Amy back next week. We may take 1 week off here as school gets started. But thanks again for making the time, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Amy, anytime you want to go on a really long bike ride Thursday morning and miss this, just, call me. I'll be here.
She's coming for your job, Amy. All right, folks. Peace out.
Bye.